Let me tell you something. Being unbothered doesn't mean you don't care. It means you care differently. It means you value your peace enough not to hand it over to every little moment that doesn't deserve it. You don't need to clap back. You don't need to prove your point. You need to pause. That pause, that's power. That's training. When someone throws you shade, don't plant it, don't water it, don't grow it, walk past it. You've got better things to do, and I get it. We've all got triggers, but here's the truth. Your triggers are your responsibility. They're your emotional gym. So hit those reps, strengthen that muscle, because when you get stronger, you stop reacting and you start responding. Stop letting every text, every look, every opinion become a fire alarm in your head. Not everything is urgent. Not everything deserves a seat in your peace. When you walk into a room, don't ask, do they like me? Ask, do I like my energy right now? That shift, that's when you know you're training. You can scroll without comparing. You can disagree without arguing. You can hear criticism without crumbling. That's the work. That's the skill. Being unbothered is not about pretending. It's about preparing. So show up calm, not because life is easy, but because you've practiced peace like it's your job. Train for it daily. That's how you win. Emotional discipline is louder than emotional reaction. We live in a world that rewards the loudest voice in the room, the quickest clapback, the sharpest response, but that noise fades. What doesn't fade is the person who stayed composed when chaos walked in. Emotional discipline is about knowing what to feel and when to show it. It's not denial, it's control. When you walk into a situation that's messy, charged, and heavy, the person who keeps their cool isn't weak. They're practiced. They've trained themselves to feel deeply without bleeding on everyone around them. That's power. That's a voice that doesn't need to shout to be heard. When you react, you give the other person the remote control to your emotions. They push a button and you jump. That's not strength, that's programming. Emotional discipline is learning how to hold the remote yourself. You still feel the emotion, anger, sadness, frustration, but you pause before you move. You pause before you speak. You don't let the heat of the moment turn into words you can't take back. And that pause isn't weakness. That pause is wisdom. It's awareness. It's you understanding that emotional maturity is not about suppressing the fire. It's about learning how to hold it without burning everything down. We've all been in situations where someone says something out of line. They go too far, they hit a nerve, they try to provoke, and the old you might have exploded, might have yelled, might have matched their energy just to protect your own pride. But what if I told you that silence sometimes is the loudest flex? That holding your composure while someone else unravels is not only strength, it's growth. That's emotional discipline. You see it, you feel it, but you choose to respond with thought, not impulse. And when you do that, you become unshakable in rooms that used to rattle you. There's a difference between reacting and responding. Reacting is instant, it's triggered, it's raw. Responding takes breath, it takes pause, it takes restraint. Not because you're afraid, but because you're focused. Think about how many conflicts have escalated simply because one person couldn't take a breath. Now think about how many moments you can own when you do take that breath. That's the space where emotional discipline lives, in the space between the trigger and your action. That's where your peace is protected. That's where your energy is filtered. That's where your growth is visible, not to prove anything to others, but to prove everything to yourself. People will test you, that's a guarantee. Life will test you, that's a promise. And the goal isn't to avoid the test. The goal is to stop failing it. When you start practicing emotional discipline, you start seeing these tests as opportunities, not to perform, not to impress, but to stay grounded. It's in the middle of a heated conversation that you learn the value of a deep breath. It's when someone disrespects you that you understand the power of self-control, because at the end of the day, your reaction is your responsibility, and that's what separates someone who's easily bothered from someone who's deeply rooted. Your emotions are valid, every single one of them, but not every one of them needs a stage. Emotional discipline is choosing which emotions get a mic and which ones get processed in private. That doesn't mean you don't express yourself. That means you express yourself with intention, with timing, with impact. Think about how strong you are when you can feel something deeply. and still not let it control your next move. That's emotional strength. That's character. That's the result of discipline that didn't come overnight, but through trial, failure, reflection, and consistency. Training emotional discipline is like building muscle. You don't get it from one moment of calm. You get it from choosing calm over and over again, even when you have every reason to react, especially then. The moments when you're shaking, when your pride is loud, when your instinct wants to snap. That's when you're building it, not with a loud voice, but with a steady presence. You're learning to be the thermostat, not the thermometer. You set the temperature. You hold it, even when everything around you wants to spike. That's how you become emotionally disciplined, and that's how you stay unbothered. Boundaries are not walls. They are doors with locks. The difference matters more than people realize. A wall shuts everything out, even the good. A locked door lets in what aligns and keeps out what doesn't. It's intentional. It's controlled. Boundaries are not about being mean, cold, or distant. They are about being clear. They're about saying, this is how I want to be treated, and meaning it with your actions, not just your words. You can love people deeply and still say, this is not okay with me. That's not harsh. That's healthy. Too often, we wait for people to cross a line before we admit the line even exists. And by the time they've crossed it, resentment's already built. Boundaries don't need to be built out of anger. They should be built from awareness. Knowing what drains you, what confuses you, what triggers you, and having the courage to design your life around protection instead of apology. A boundary is not a punishment to others. It's a form of self-respect. It's you recognizing that you don't owe your time, energy, or space to people just because they want it. You owe those things to yourself first. There's a fear that comes with setting boundaries, especially when you've been a people pleaser. You start to wonder, what if they leave? What if they get upset? But here's what matters more. What if you stay and keep getting hurt? What if you keep stretching past your limits just to make someone else comfortable? That's not kindness. That's self-abandonment. Boundaries protect you from abandoning yourself. And yes, some people will get uncomfortable when you start enforcing them, especially if they benefited from you having none. That's not your problem to fix. That's their mirror to face. You're not here to be accessible 24/7. You're not here to be agreeable at your own expense. You're not here to be everything to everyone. And when you realize that, something shifts. You stop explaining yourself so much. You stop over-apologizing. You stop negotiating with your own peace just to keep others from feeling uncomfortable. Boundaries bring freedom. They make your yes mean something because your no has weight. They bring clarity to your relationships, to your habits, to your mind. They're not rigid rules. They're flexible filters. They're how you stay aligned with who you're becoming. It's not always about cutting people off. Sometimes it's about changing how close they get. You can still love someone and not answer every call. You can still care and not engage every time they try to pull you into chaos. Boundaries allow you to stay connected without being consumed. They teach others how to treat you, but more importantly, they remind you of how you deserve to be treated. That's where real self-worth shows up, not in what you allow once, but in what you consistently protect. You don't have to shout your worth, just show it by how you move. The hardest boundaries to keep are the ones with people you're close to. Family, friends, partners. Because those ties feel deeper, the pressure feels heavier. But that's where boundaries matter the most. The closer someone is to your heart, the more access they have to it, and the more responsibility you have to guard it. It's not about shutting down. It's about showing up with clarity, about saying, I love you and I also love me. When both of those can be true at the same time, that's growth, that's balance, that's where your peace gets space to breathe. There's a version of you that's more calm, more focused, more grounded, and that version has strong boundaries. That version doesn't respond out of guilt. That version doesn't live in burnout. That version doesn't over-explain every decision. You don't become that version by accident. You build it one boundary at a time. You build it by understanding that not everyone deserves a front row seat to your life. Not every invitation deserves a yes. Not every opinion deserves a reaction. Boundaries give you room to protect your energy, not just for others, but for yourself. Not everything requires a response. That truth alone will save you from arguments, anxiety, and exhaustion. Just because something was said doesn't mean it needs to be answered. Just because someone acted out doesn't mean you need to react. Silence isn't weakness, it's strategy, it's awareness. It's a reminder that you don't owe your energy to every invitation to chaos. Every situation doesn't deserve your voice. Sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is let people sit with their own noise without pulling you into it. That's how you keep your peace from getting hijacked by someone else's storm. Every response costs you something: time, energy, focus. And the truth is, not every moment deserves that payment. When you're always responding, defending yourself, explaining yourself, proving your point, you end up drained. You turn every minor thing into a major event. You become reactive instead of reflective. But when you train yourself to pause, to breathe, to choose stillness over reaction, you shift into control. You're not ignoring reality, you're mastering it. You're learning that maturity isn't about winning the last word. It's about knowing which words are even worth speaking in the first place. Some people speak just to get a rise out of you. They don't want understanding. They want attention. They don't care about clarity. They want control. And the moment you bite, you've handed it over. You've entered a game that doesn't serve you. So instead of falling into the trap of defending every boundary, just enforce it. Instead of explaining every decision, just live it. You don't need to type out that paragraph. You don't need to chase closure in every conversation. Peace gets louder when your responses get quieter. It's not silence from fear, it's silence from confidence. You have to ask yourself in every situation, what's the goal here? Is the goal peace or is it pride? Is the goal clarity or is it control? Sometimes we respond just to feel seen or validated, but other people's validation is temporary. What lasts is knowing you chose peace over provocation. What lasts is knowing you didn't let someone else's energy become your responsibility. That restraint, that discipline is how you stay unbothered. Not because nothing affects you,